Well, that's a question I've been trying to answer my whole life. But the short story is, as far as, anime and everything like that goes, I was a radio TV major at University of Houston, and I always thought I'd go into radio because I love music. I've been playing guitar since I was 10. But I kind of happened into the guys at ADV Films, AD Vision.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Movement Radio. I am Chip Hazard,
I am Talon Williams.
I'm Roger Sierra.
and today we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, voice
Yes.
actor extraordinaire, Charles Campbell. Charles, how are you today?
Great, been acting like I've had a voice for a long time. Good to see you guys.
Good to
Yeah,
see
good
you
to see you
again.
again, buddy.
Yes. So for those who don't know, who is Charles Campbell?
Well, that's a question I've been trying to answer my whole life. But the short story is, as far as, anime and everything like that goes, I was a radio TV major at University of Houston, and I always thought I'd go into radio because I love music. I've been playing guitar since I was 10. But I kind of happened into the guys at ADV Films, AD Vision. They were using that place as a place I was interning at that did Ford commercials as a place to record before they had their own studio. And I said, well, heck, I like cartoons too. Audio cartoons, why not? So got into it back in 1995, not 1895. That'd be way too far back. But yeah, man, I love music. I've been doing. I started as their ADV's first in-house audio ADR engineer. Then moved my way into the Austin office at Monster Island. Did engineering, directing, and producing, and video extras, and started doing more voices. And then moved to Houston and moved up here to Dallas and work with multiple companies now. But still doing voices, still directing some. Having a good time. Yeah, going to some conventions and seeing some of you guys. I didn't used to go to conventions much because I was recording so much, and I was like, well, got to have the weekends at some point. And people enjoy the meeting the actors, I think, more than the directors because they identify with the characters, and that's been a real blast.
Awesome.
That's
All right.
awesome.
Well, Chip asked the question, Chip asked the question, who are you? I'm going to ask the question, who were you? When you was young, like what was that initial spark that made you go, this is something I might want to get into one day?
Well, it's funny because, like I was saying, I was mostly into music, but I always loved cartoons and stuff. Like when I was a kid, I watched Speed Racer and Ultraman and Star Blazers and Gotcha Man, which back then was Battle of the Planets or G-Force. And a lot of those things I didn't even know were anime. I just was like, hey, I just like them, whatever they are, especially like Speed Racer and all the cool cars and everything. But uh, I would say my first choice was Rockstar, but still working on that. They're getting older. I ended up doing that for fun, and I was like, I gotta do something that'll pay the bills. So when I got into radio, TV, and production and everything, and found the deal with ADV Films, I was like, it was a really good fit. But I would say, voices and stuff, I just always did silly voices. I used to imitate cartoons or imitate my teachers, and I never got caught. Very stealthy. So who said that? And it just sounded just like whoever it was. And then, I love having fun with other people. And, before I got into this, as a career, I was just getting a business degree and miserable in school. And the practice wife I had at the time said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'd like to do something audiovisual, or music. And she said, well, then change your major. And I think that was a key thing, instead of just being miserable at work and having fun outside of work, I got to to combine the talents, you know.
Awesome,
Absolutely.
awesome.
So,
Yeah.
So you said your first love was music. Uh,
Mhm.
what kind of sparked that interest? What band was it? I see Abbey Road on the sign behind you.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, you know, my uncle was 12 years older than me, and he used to give me all of his crackly albums when I was a little kid. So I was listening to all of his stuff, which was like, you know, the Beatles, the Stones, Black Sabbath, um, you know, a lot of the earlier 70s bands. Um, and as I listened to those and enjoyed them, I started to learn how to play the guitar. And I just always loved music, you know. And I mean, I studied like chords and stuff, but I pretty much just play by ear and kind of taught myself. It just came naturally, you know. So,
yeah.
and it was a good, um, you know, release and escape into uncharted lands. You know, whatever you're listening to, I have a great imagination. So I didn't really need a music video. I just needed the album cover and a good stereo.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
it's so interesting how like music it just I've heard this said before, music just soothes the soul.
Hmm.
You put on a good album, and I still to this day I love listening to vinyl. I grew up, my mom, uh
Yeah.
she had like every Elvis album on vinyl, and we would
Hmm.
always every Saturday morning we'd put on Elvis and just like drink tea and hang out. And I fell in love with vinyl then, and it's just you can put on a good album and like zone out, and it just soothes everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
It's great.
That's the way my dad was with Electric Light Orchestra. He
Oh
loved
yeah.
ELO. My dad loved ELO. He's got he still has the original vinyl somewhere. I think it's in my sister's garage somewhere. But yeah, he still got the album somewhere. He had like a whole lot of like he even had like some old Ray Stevens records on vinyl. I'm like, where did
Yeah.
you find this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ELO, I just saw them a few years ago. They still sound great. And
Yeah.
they always had really cool album covers. You know, that was
Hmm.
the artwork always fascinated me for different bands that go. And the funny thing is, sometimes I buy an album that because I like the cover, but then I'd play it and I go, "What the heck is this? This doesn't look. This doesn't sound nearly as cool as the cover looks." You know? But
Slayer's Rain and Blood, is that what is that the one you're talking about?
uh,
Because you look at Slayer's Rain and Blood album, it's like, oh, this album looks awesome. It's like, okay, there's two good songs on it. What's up with this? You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Now there are like, hang on one second, I'll get
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Watch
Yeah,
out, doggies.
break it out.
I I always saw covers for this band and thought, man, they look like they'd be really heavy, you know, the old Molly Hatchet stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness. Yes.
And they're good. They're just like Southern rock. And I'm like, well, I
Yep.
didn't expect that. They sound good, but I expected, you know, like something super heavy, but great album covers, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
uh I always like Pink Floyd's album covers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like animals where they get the floating pig and the big stacks and everything.
Yes sir,
Yeah.
yes sir.
Dark Side of the
uh
Moon and
Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. The wall, open it up and you'd have a wall for your toys, you know, just put them in front of it there. It's a
yep.
double album. So
Yes, yes.
yeah.
um so your first love was music, and then you go to college as a business major. You're not really feeling that, and then you stumble onto this role at ADV.
Mhm.
What was that like? That first day on the job or whatnot.
It was great. I mean, the cool thing is when I did the internship, I was at Texas Video and Post, which is a big place that does like a lot of Ford commercials. Their audio suite looked like the Starship Enterprise. I mean, it was just amazing because it was all outboard gear back then, you know. So you had lots of cool, uh, you know, lights and buttons and things. And I'd been stuck off in a room that was for Chiron, which is the tiny letters at the bottom of a commercial that nobody reads. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. I love this place, but this is horrible. And then they said, well, let's give you a tour. And they took me to the audio suite and I met this guy, great guy, Paul Killam. And I had a cassette with me of some music I had made. And he played guitar too. And he says, hey, man, let me play your tape, see what you sound like. And so he played it and he says, you've got a good ear for mixing. You want to learn how to use this equipment instead? I said, do I? So when I fell into subbing for him late at night for ADV Films, when they opened their own studio, which happened to be right around when I graduated, it was just real easy to kind of just fall into that position. And at the time, they were using a studio that was, it was partly theirs, but it was somebody else's studio, and he had it set up for music. So I was kind of familiar with some of that stuff anyway. And then having built computers here and there, little old PCs, I was familiar with that to some degree. So it was a pretty easy fit, and I like the people that I worked with there, and caught on pretty quickly for editing and everything. On back then was just the Audio Vision by Avid, which was before you could edit video; you could only edit the audio. But yeah, I mean, it was an easy fit, and I was having a blast. I was like, well, this is way better than working at the office down the road. This was just good.
Yeah.
Better than being stuck in a cubicle.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think in a lot of ways I was in the right place at the right time, but I also got along really well with everyone involved, and was an easy fit personality wise. So it was just you know somebody up there steering me the right way.
Right. Right.
Right.
So when does the like voice acting bug hit? Where does that come into play?
Well, I'd always been, well, for voices, it kind of started with music for me because I didn't have a PA. I just had my guitar amps, and I
Yeah.
jammed with friends, and I was the only guy that could yell loud enough through the mic through a guitar amp, for the vocals. And also usually I didn't have the vocals written down, so I just make stuff up that rhymed. And
Yeah.
some usually it was totally ridiculous, not the worst the bands had intended, or pick up my own stuff. But uh, the the bug for voices stemming from music, um, early days of recording, other people were the actors, I was the audio engineer. But I'd get to the end of a show and there'd be like some crowd scenes that didn't sound like they had enough, or there were some missing characters that just had a line or two here and there, and I go in and fill them in just to make it sound better. And funny story, the one time we were working on, this is way back in, gosh, probably 97 or something. There was a show, and there was a little scene with a construction crew, and I was like, oh man, there's nothing here, we've missed this. And so I'd hit record and put it on delay, run into the booth, do a person's voice, and come back, and did it back and forth until I had a whole construction crew. And I was really proud of that. So like, hey, that was me.
That's awesome.
I could
Which
vary it
anime
enough
was
to where it didn't just sound like the same guy.
Yeah.
which anime was this?
Man, I'm trying to remember.
Man.
That might have, because I worked in Austin for a long time at Monster Island, but this was in Houston early on. It was probably something like maybe Blue Seed, or I have to go back and see, because the ones I remember the most from back then were Evangelion, Blue Seed, Devil Hunter Yoko, um, all those sorts of shows. So it was something pretty early on. And then
Yeah.
with, and then also before I got big parts, when I moved to Austin, I would there'd be scenes with monsters, and the sound effects, the monsters sounded like a garbage truck, or it didn't sound like anything. It was like, come on, I love monsters. These should sound better. So I'd run my mic through all these different guitar processors and make the monster sounds and multi-track them and everything. And then I was like, now there's some dragons, it's just like crazy sounding, and I just had a blast doing it.
Just use
That's
a wah
awesome.
pedal to make a noise.
Yeah, well, like I say, I was used to messing with them with music. And
Yeah.
like there was a show called Steam Detectives that had this giant robot named, I think it was Goki, and he didn't really have any words in the show. And in Japanese, he just made noises, but we couldn't use those. So was like, "Oh, what do I need?" And I thought, the coolest noise from a robot I've ever heard was Cylons, right? From Battlestar
Yeah.
Galactica.
Yeah.
So I went
Yeah.
and bought an outboard vocoder, a real one, plugged it in through my mic input and through a mixer, and did his whole part through all the series through a vocoder, and just vroom, 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 all these really cool sound like yes and no answers and things. And that was a total blast, even though I really wasn't saying anything. Then later on, I could, use the vocoder to do some Cylon music or something.
That's old school right
Yeah.
That's awesome. So do you remember like what your first named character was in an anime?
Well, let me think. I'd have to go back to IMDb probably because there's so many.
I know, yeah.
It was probably in um, Lost Universe, maybe, because I think that was the first one I directed. But I'm sure I was like minor characters before that.
Right.
Um,
Um, how did it make you feel when you got that first like named character where you it wasn't more than or I mean sorry, it was more than just like a small voice here or a small voice
yeah,
there.
I thought it was cool. I mean, it was nice to say. So who'd you play to have a name to give him, or it wasn't, Genius Five. It was
there.
somebody, but um, I just I just had fun throughout. I mean, at the point when I started doing voices, I was also engineering and directing and casting, and so with all the different hats, it all just kind of melded into one fun time.
Yeah. Any nerves getting in the booth for the first time?
No, no, not at all. I mean, uh, partly because I was totally at ease with the people I was working with, and was used to them, and had uh, no self consciousness really because I'm not in front of anybody. I'm just in a booth, and yeah, it was easy. I was more concentrated on trying to get the voice or the sounds or whatever the director wanted or what I thought would sound good than being nervous or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was
okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, do what?
it wasn't hard. I mean, the hardest part back in those days would be if we premiered a show when this was when I was in Austin, like we'd premiere a show at the Alamo Draft House, and I'd get all excited, like we did a Samurai X, the first one there, and but they say, "Hey, go stand out in front of the crowd and tell them about the show," and I'd be like, "Okay." Well, it was hard to do that because I hadn't really done any public speaking without it, or no, like real talking into a mic without a guitar in front of me, you know.
Right.
So it took a while to get used to that, but the booth was a piece of cake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. I guess it's for you, it's as long as you're having fun and you enjoy what you're doing, it's easy, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like the acting and directing and everything just came naturally to me. I was never in theater troupes or took classes for any of it. It just was kind of like the guitar. I just kind of got the hang of it.
Yeah.
And
What's some
came.
of your what are some of your favorite characters that you voiced?
I really liked Dr. Hamilcar Barkus from Guyver Bio Boosted Armor. It was a series. He was a bad guy, and this massive guy with this big like beam thing on his head because he turned into a monster.
Mhm.
And massive gray hair and everything, and he was kind of talking like this and bellowing amongst people and disgusting at the same time. And I'd pitch him down one semitone, and in the audio vision, and he sounded pretty crazy. So he was a lot of fun. Um, who else? Um, I've played a lot of like big crazy characters and military characters. When I got up here in Dallas, they cast me as like
the school teacher that was kind of a nice guy and unassuming and would just help people out, you know.
Or or in Sonic the Hedgehog, the motion picture, the one shot one that came out in the late '90s. I was old man owl and you're kind of confused and oh hello Sonic, how are you today? You know, just kind of more cartoony, you know. And that was kind of
Yeah.
fun. I just love playing with whatever sort of voices and whatever it was, took it as it came, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of voices, you have a kind of a wide vocal range, but what do
Mhm.
you feel is the hardest for you to sustain over a longer recording session?
Probably just the gravelly ones, you know, like when I go to a convention and everyone's like, "You play Gran Torino?" I said, "Yeah, I'm Gran Torino. How you doing?" You know, and I just keep talking like that for like 9 hours. And after a while, it gets a little bit, you know, tough on the voice. But he's a really fun character, and I love playing military characters. But yeah, it's probably that, you know. Or I was in Borderlands, and there was this screaming medic, and
Yep.
man, I mean, just a couple hours that guy wigging out was you know the end of my voice for a day, you know.
Yeah.
But again, I used to yell over my amplifiers as playing music, so I was kind of knew what to expect, you know,
Yeah.
doing the thing.
Yeah. You said Borderlands. That's my dad's favorite video game of all time. He loves anything
Oh yeah,
Borderlands. Yeah, he loves it. You've also done video games too. Am I correct, or has it just been in the world of anime? What do
yeah.
you? I guess what you enjoy more is probably a not correct way to ask the question. But do you prefer video games over anime, or is there a difference there? Or do you care one
There's
way or the
a
other?
there's a huge difference because when you're doing the video game voices, you just see a picture of your character. There's no movement or anything, and it's
Hmm.
more just a list of phrases. Maybe if you have some narration, there's some of that or some dialogue.
Okay.
Um, I like it, but it's not as much fun as doing anime or as much fun as doing live action dubs. I really love that, seeing people's voices come out of real people, you know,
Yeah.
and getting it right so it doesn't look like an old Godzilla movie is really rewarding.
Hey, I like those old Godzilla movies. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, me too. Yeah, I like to get the mouth to match, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So with the strain that voice acting can sometimes bring, do you have any specific exercises or routines that you do to take care of your voice?
Lots of crackers and peanut butter.
Hmm.
Hey. Yes.
Not really. I mean,
So,
um, you know, I mean, I just if my voice is bothering me at all, I have some tea and some with some honey in it or something, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but typically, I just kind of go with it, you know. If there's going to be a lot of yelling and screaming, I kind of just ask for more than one session, you know,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
save all that till the end. If there's a lot of just dialogue, do all that first, and at the end blow everything out. But there've been a lot of characters that I've directed and that I've played that you know we've scheduled somebody for multiple sessions because we didn't want to harm their voice with too much of that all at once, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's that.
Have you ever worked with someone that's like, man, I'm working with this, but like not like I guess starstruck would be the wrong word to use, I guess, in that situation. But have you ever been like in a booth with someone that's like, I'm working with this voice actor that I admire and respect? Like have you ever had that moment in your career?
Yeah, I mean, the main person that comes to mind is Edwin Neal, who I met through auditions and stuff that we were having in Austin for anime, and he fit really well. But he's the original hitchhiker in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original movie.
Mm.
You know, hey, let me take your picture, guy. You know, with a straight laser and everything. And being a big like classic horror movie fan, I was like, well, that's totally cool, you know. And and he ended up having a really versatile voice, and I still use him to this day. And he'll throw some work my way and let me record him doing like a he recently did voices for the Texas Chainsaw pinball machine, and he can still do the voice he did back in 1978 or whenever it was. It's pretty
Oh,
impressive.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and super nice guy. And coolest story about other famous people. So he had to do some recording, and we did it at my home studio. And he said, "Hey, you mind if I bring a friend with me?" I said, "No, man, that's fine. Bring whatever." And so he brought Gunnar Hansen was in town, who's the original Leatherface from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Really nice guy. He was good friends with Ed, and so we had a little bit of a visit after we recorded. And I said, "Hey, you guys want to go grab something to eat?" And they, yeah, sure. So we went to this really cool little like hamburger bar sort of place across from a field with all these longhorns, and had barbecue. And so I'm sitting there having barbecue with Leatherface and the hitchhiker, right across from the longhorns. It's like that's kind of something different. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like, this is my life. This is life.
yeah. They're super nice too. The funny thing was, Gunnar was from Maine, and I said, "Oh, I bet you get some great lobster up there." And he goes, "No, they send it all to Boston and have it all packaged. We're trying to get them to leave some of it in Maine for us." Crazy.
Oh.
But yeah, it's great meeting people when I have the chance.
Yeah.
That's yeah, I always enjoy meeting people at conventions, because a lot of times it's like you're trying to place a face with a voice,
Mhm.
and sometimes like the face doesn't line up to the voice, and you're like,
Yeah,
wow, that's you
that
know
happens a lot. I mean, like with that, or even with like if you ever saw somebody in a music video, you're like, well, I didn't think they looked like that.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but voices is the same way. Like every time I see a picture of a DJ, like a radio DJ, they never look like I thought they would look.
No.
No,
I
never.
mean, nothing even close. That's
No.
funny.
But it's crazy because we did a couple of conventions. This was a few years ago. We did a convention, and voice actor Quentin Flynn was there,
Mhm.
and this was at the end of the convention, and we were just making our rounds and stuff, and we went to his table, and I look at his table, and I was like, wait a minute, you were the voice of Raiden in Metal Gear Solid? Like it, I didn't. You don't put two and two together, and it's crazy because it's like, man, like you play this game, and it's like I played as you. I mean, even though it wasn't you, but it's you. Like
Yeah,
how you don't know how to explain it to them. You know what I mean?
it's kind of surreal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's really surreal.
It is. Speaking of surreal, have you ever heard someone else's voice and thought, "Man, that sounds like me"?
Um, oh, maybe. I've had other people say that they hear me in all these different shows, and I don't know. They're not always familiar to me. I'm like, I might have done that one, but oh yeah, it was you. I'm sure it was you. I heard you in this, that, and the other, and so it happens more reverse osmosis for me than me hearing other folks. And actually, a lot of the time, unless I've used people a lot in productions or met them in person,
Hmm.
I might not know who they are by their voice because as voice actors, we don't meet each other unless we're at a convention or in the
Right.
waiting room of the studio, you know. So you can be in all these shows with all these people and not have met half of them.
I find that so interesting that, it's just all done. You do the voice and it goes to, you know, post production and then it's all pieced together and everything. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah, yeah, that was the really fun part about audio engineering and directing at the time because basically you had this big puzzle, right? You have a script, then you have the mouth flaps in the show,
Yeah.
and then you got the actor who is used to speaking a certain speed, you know. Some people talk fast, some people talk slow. And so you had to kind of, I call it acting in Morse code. It's like dot, dash, dash, dot, dot. And so you had to be able to look at the script and what was on the screen and figure out words to add or subtract if they didn't fit from the script in a way that the actor would sound as natural as possible. And the cool thing to me, going back to music, is if you have a really good dub, you shouldn't even have to look at the picture and have it, and you could say it sounds good. I mean, it might not make as much sense unless there's a lot of narration. But if I listen to a show and it sounds like none of the instruments are out of place, and everybody knows how to play their instrument, then to me it makes a great song, which is just how I look at directing and dubbing shows. Is I try to make sure everything sounds right together, and then if you do look at it and it all matches up, then you've got the right combination,
Right.
That makes
and then
sense.
and then
Yeah.
with people who write the scripts, it's really interesting because if you watch an anime character's mouth, like if the mouth only opens 3 times, it's more like a hand puppet. 3 times could be, "Hey, how are you doing?" That's only 3 openings, but it's way
Yeah.
more than 3 words. And a
Right.
big mistake people make when they first try to do scripts is they try to do a word of mouth movement and it never works. It's way too many words, or it's just odd. And then in live action, especially in Japanese, a lot of the sentences end in vowels, and that doesn't happen a lot in English. So you have to figure out, well, I can't say "how you doing, huh?" a million times. You got to figure out something else. Sometimes it works better than others, but it's a really cool puzzle to me. I really enjoy it because if you do it right, then it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you prefer um voicing or directing? Because you've talked both a lot.
Mhm. I like both a lot. I mean, I'm about to start directing a new a dub of I don't know that I can name the show right now, but
Yeah, don't break any
Yeah,
NDAs.
but
please
it's
don't
cool.
break
It's
any
Yeah.
NDAs for us.
Yeah, no, but it's like a big action film that came out in China this year, so it's really cool. But I love the I love directing, especially if I have control over casting,
Mhm.
because then I can look for the instrument I'm looking for, instead of having to use the instruments they give me.
Yeah.
And uh, and then I can play the show and have it turn out good. So to me, that uses more of my skills at once. But I love just doing the voice acting too, because to me that's just fun. It's pretty easy and it's fun, and there's not as much for me, not as much concentration and hours that go into it as if you're having to direct a whole show.
Yeah.
But I totally enjoy all of it. Nowadays, I do acting as a kind of a second gig, and my full-time job, I'm a designer for audiovisual systems for NFL stadiums and colleges and universities and schools and fire departments. And I don't install it, I don't buy it, I just help design it. And then the architect will hire someone to install it all, and then I go check it out and see if it all works right.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome. What's
Yeah.
probably the biggest NFL stadium that you've designed for?
Well, the stadiums I've helped out with. I haven't been the lead designer on those,
Mhm.
but the company I work for has done SoFi Stadium, the new one in Vegas. They've worked on a majority of the stadiums in the country, and now they're starting to work on some in Europe and around the world. But I enjoy the schools and things too,
Yeah.
because I did live production for a while, and so now when I'm helping design an auditorium or something, I know as a user what would make it easier for me if I was in that position. So that's a helpful sort of point of view.
Yeah.
Uh, but I just try to use all the different things I've come in contact with audiovisual wise, whether it's directing, acting, live production, whatever, music. It all kind of fits together for me, and I've been lucky that when one thing kind of slowed down, I could kind of pivot to another and didn't end up at the laundromat. you know? Got a
I
quarter?
I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
Um, so I got a kind of an interesting question here for you.
Mhm.
Which character that you have voiced do you think you would not get along with in real life?
Hmm. Um, well, I mean, probably Barkus because he's trying to kill everyone and turns into a monster. It'd be harder to get along with. I probably,
That makes sense.
yeah, and maybe a Leader X and Gotcha Man, the floating head thing on the giant screen that Verkatze talks to. He'd probably get a bit boring to talk to because he's just a disembodied strange thing and is always ordering people around. So maybe not him as much.
Yeah. And then when it comes to music, you're a big music guy. If
Mhm.
your life had a theme song, what would play every time you walked into a room?
Man, that's a toughie. I like so much different stuff. Uh, let's see. Maybe there's an instrumental called Frankenstein by the Edgar Winter Group that's pretty rocking, and it could work in different situations because there aren't
Yep.
words tied to it. Otherwise, let's see. Maybe a Motorhead song, or
Yeah,
it
yeah,
worked for the wrestlers, so it should work for me too, right? I mean,
yes,
Lemmy was great. I loved him, and then
yeah.
you just got to find the right subject matter. Maybe old school, maybe Jumpin' Jack Flash by the Rolling Stones. That's
Oh,
a
that's a
Hey,
good one.
go
that's,
to.
that's a good one. That's a real good one.
Uh, so you mentioned wrestling. Are you a wrestling fan as well, or do
I
you
was
just know
into it
it
more
from?
when I was a kid. Like Houston wrestling was huge. Had some people that spun out of that, the Von Erichs and everything that they just had the movie about. I used to watch them.
Yeah.
Uh, Junkyard Dog, all these crazy people. Then I watched WWE for a while when it was Hulk Hogan was big and the Ultimate Warrior and all that. But when all that sort of changed, I was getting into other stuff. So I kind of occasionally would just turn on something and see, oh yeah, they're still going. But at some point I pivoted over to Mike Tyson for a while for his career because that was great to watch.
That was.
But now there's way too many weight classes in boxing. So when the Klitschko's quit, to me they were like watching two Russian superheroes, even though they weren't Russian, but they won everything and they were great. But it all got too convoluted, so I don't watch that too much anymore. But I enjoy, if in passing by, I enjoy it. Actually, mixed martial arts, the Gracies and all that. I used to watch that for a while.
Oh, so you were like early UFC days, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before they had rules.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
That's
mean, it was
The fun
crazy.
days, the fun days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's when I liked UFC. Royce Gracie would choke people out with his gi.
yeah, yeah. I did get sick of the gi, but you had him and like the oh gosh, the Dan Severance, who was
Yeah.
Dude. Yes.
crazy, and um, this Jake the Snake, all these different people. I think the craziest thing I saw really early on was this massive sumo wrestler guy was going up against a kickboxer, and they were coming at each other, and the kickboxer kicked him in the nose and knocked him out. And it wasn't he didn't even get a chance to do anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was just
That was that was
Wild
the
West.
that was the first or second Ultimate tournament, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was way back.
90, 94 or 95, I want to say.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
about right.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was the third one, I think, because Shamrock and Gracie met in the finals of the Ultimate tournament that year.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy because Dan Severance looked like Freddie Mercury on massive steroids. He had the mustache and the overbite and everything. I'm like, man, that
He
guy
still
looks
does. He
great.
still does look like that.
Yes.
I never put two and two together like that before. My God.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
I got the opportunity to meet Dan Severin at a local wrestling show one
Yep.
time. I mean, the dude could kill you like that, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
literally the nicest guy.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. The biggest guy in boxing I ever met in person was I was at an Oshman's on a Tuesday. I was going to college, junior college up in Kingwood, Texas, and it's like 10 o'clock. Nobody's in the mall, right? I'm walking in Oshman's. I see this massive guy at the back. He starts walking toward me with, I think he was with his wife or somebody, you know. And it was George Foreman. And he's walking toward me, and I wasn't gonna bug him, but it's like, "Hey, I know you," you know. And he goes, "Hey, how you doing?" When he waved at me, it looked like his hand could fit all the way around my head, and he could have touched his fingers. I mean, those mitts were huge, and he couldn't have been nicer, you know. But he looked so much bigger in person, because when you see him on TV, there was somebody else big or bigger, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
With regular folks, you're like, "Oh my God, this guy's massive." And that was like a year or something, maybe before he did his comeback in the Astrodome, I guess it was, or
Yeah.
had won that bout after he'd retired. It was pretty cool.
Yep.
This guy though, and I used his grill.
Yeah. I think everyone's used the
We
George
all-
Foreman grill at least once.
Obviously, we all have used this grill.
Yeah, you got to see the movie they did recently about him. It's fantastic. I mean, I think it's called Big George Foreman or something.
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
really,
I have
really
it.
good.
Where
Yeah, I
can you
have a-
watch it?
I think it's like Netflix. I think.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, it's on my watch list. Um,
yeah, well done.
I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah,
Definitely. I love biographical movies because you kind of get that behind the scenes view of somebody that you know
yeah.
looked
I
up
love
to or
reading
whatnot.
biography books too of
Mhm.
people that I liked, you know,
Yep.
because you learn all kinds of stuff and go, "Well, that's neat. I didn't know that," you know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Just never read a Hulk Hogan biography. It's full of lies.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
He didn't even write it himself, and the person he paid to
Oh.
write it didn't write it themselves. They paid somebody else to write it, for the other person to write it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was he? What was he writing? Mr. Nanny at the time, Roger?
I have no idea what he was doing.
playing bass with Metallica. Yeah.
Right. Hey,
Oh,
you
no,
never
the Rolling
know
Stones.
show.
I'm sorry.
yeah.
It was both bands. All right.
We
Yeah.
previously we've done a couple of episodes of lies that Hulk Hogan has said. And since you brought up George Foreman, he one of the lies that and it's most notable that proven that it was a lie. He said that
Mhm.
the George Foreman grill was originally created for him, but when they made the call for him to come in and endorse it, he was picking his son up from school.
Mhm.
Right.
And so
Okay.
they tossed it to George.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, George did say something. They did say something in the movie about something about the grill where someone kind of helped convince him to do it, and he said, "Oh, okay, I will." And it ended up being the biggest money maker ever, you know, for him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he
He's
probably
made-
made more money off of the grill than he ever did playing, ever did boxing. Probably.
I think he did. Yeah.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt that
With a lot less pain.
has- Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you burned yourself, you're doing pretty good. You know?
Right.
Right. So what's your kind of go-to sport now? You said you used to watch wrestling, then it transitioned to boxing and then MMA. Do you watch sports now or
You know, I mean, I might switch it occasionally onto the Bellator station on Pluto and watch some MMA there because it's always
yeah.
but I'm not really a huge sports guy. I might watch a few football games during the year, you know, just to, you know, the Cowboys or wherever I'm living, I'll watch that team, you know, but I don't really have anything invested in any of it. Maybe like this last year, I put on golf a lot on the weekends when I want to take a nap. You wake up and see some pretty scenery and go back to sleep, you know. And,
Now at
I
the
was-
13th hole.
I always joke and say,
This is a par 3. Let's see
they
if he
say-
can hit this putt.
they say, "Are you in the golf?" I'm only in the golf if there's a windmill involved, you know.
right?
Yeah.
I like getting the prizes.
Yes.
That's the best kind of golf.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, sports. Yeah, I'm more of a music guy. Like I say, I'm more likely to go see a band. Like I just went and saw Doc and close by, and hadn't seen or heard of them since the old Dream Warriors Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, they did the
Oh
music,
Oh,
wow.
but that was cool, and I'll be more likely to spend money on that. You know, but on
What
TV, yeah, put on a sport here and there. You know.
yeah.
what's you talk about going to concert. What's your favorite concert you ever been to?
Man, I've been to so many. There's a lot. I mean, the coolest like first concert to me was my first concert was cooler than a lot of people's first concert, right? So my uncle was 12 years older than me, and he was a big music guy. He gave me the albums and everything. He played drums, I played guitar. It was a good deal. But
Yeah.
back in 1981, I went to my first real concert. It was at the Astrodome. It was the Fabulous Thunderbirds and ZZ Top opening up for the Rolling Stones for the Start Me Up album, the Tattoo You.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome to see.
Yeah, and then the second one was Stevie Ray Vaughan opening for the Who. I mean,
Wow.
crazy. Yeah. So we kept it going from then on. You know, I've been to a lot of really good shows. I got to see Bo Diddley before he passed away.
Oh wow.
You know, I saw Little Richard 3 times, like some of the original guys. You know,
Mhm.
but a lot of classic rock. I've seen Motorhead a bunch, Black Sabbath. Went to Ozfest some years. You know, loved that. There was one Ozfest that had him, Judas Priest, I think. Motorhead, Operation Rock and Roll was really cool. That was back in Houston. That was a really great concert. It was the Judas Priest during the oh gosh, Screaming for Vengeance album tour, and it
Yeah.
was they were the headliner, but opening for them was Dangerous Toys, Motorhead, and Alice Cooper.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
It was a hell of a show, you know.
That's a hell of a lineup.
Yeah, yeah. But I just love. I mean, I've gone to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows, and Motorhead I really liked because they were just probably the loudest band I've seen, except AC/DC. They were
AC/DC?
loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had their blow up your video tour, and instead of the cannons like the old fashioned cannons they shoot on for those about to rock, in this one they had these two howitzers that came out of the stage and pointed at the audience like that, like naval cannons, you know. And when the cannons went off, they were so loud they drowned out the music. And it
oh
was
wow.
and a guy I knew had really crappy tickets was sitting in seats behind the stage, and he didn't know that was about to happen. And he's sitting down with popcorn and his beer, and the first one went off, and everything went straight up in the air.
No.
Just covered him. Scared the heck out of him.
All right. I'll ask this question. Have you ever been disappointed by any concerts that you've seen? Like maybe it's like, oh man, I love this band, and then you see them live and you're like,
Yeah, I mean, luckily not too often, but probably the one that was the biggest disappointment was I loved the opener. In fact, it's the first time I ever heard him. Lenny Kravitz was opening for the Cult, right?
Mhm.
And Lenny Kravitz was fantastic. But the Cult came out and they must have had too much fun before the concert because I don't even know if they knew what song they were playing. I was like, I left
man.
halfway through it. I was like, nah, that's okay. I enjoyed the first half. I'll just go ahead and leave, you know.
That reminds me of a concert that I went to back in like 2009 or something like that. It was before I met my wife. In Chattanooga, there used to be a concert venue called Midtown Music Hall, and they would have different bands come in and play. They had the local band here in Chattanooga, Mighty Sideshow. They opened, and then there was another band. I can't remember who that band was. I want to say it was either Egypt Central or somebody else. Can't remember who it was. But the headliner for that night was a band called Fair to Midland.
Mhm.
The guy got there at about 2 o'clock in that afternoon, and he started drinking from the moment he got there to the arena. He was drinking a beer, taking a shot of
Yeah.
whiskey, sipping, doing something. By the time the guy got on stage, he was so plastered he could not remember the words of his own songs.
Yeah,
Like
it's terrible.
he did the first song okay. At least I never heard the song before, so I don't know if he really got through it okay or not.
Mhm.
At the second song, he's telling everybody to jump up and down, stuff like that. He starts jumping up in the air. He jumps up, and as he comes down, he twists his foot, falls, and hits the corner of his head on the corner of one of the speakers,
Oh
He
my God.
stands up, he's wearing a white shirt, and there's just blood pouring down his face, and he's just sitting there just laughing. At this point, half the crowd has already went to the bar.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
just
what is
it's a
this
train wreck.
we're watching? It was so bad. It was
Yeah.
so bad.
Uh,
Worst, it was the worst concert I've ever been to.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was bad.
What's your next concert? Do you have anything lined up?
Yeah, it the what was it, the up in Oklahoma, they've got this massive
Is it Rock on the Range?
Oklahoma.
no, it's just a single show.
Oh, okay.
Trying to think of the name of the gambling establishment. WinStar. The
Oh.
WinStar is having ZZ Top next month,
Oh,
and that'll be a good show. But the cool thing is they've built a whole new venue outside of the uh, main building. And it used to be you just go sit in this big concrete room, but now they've built this sure enough theater with acoustics and everything. So it ought to sound way better and be more worth the money and driving up there, But they always put on a really good show.
Yeah. Do you prefer festivals? Or do you prefer like clubs?
I mean, I like a club if someone's playing a club because you're closer and you don't have to pay as much, and hopefully it sounds better. I haven't been to a festival in a long time because there just haven't been enough bands I wanted to see on the ticket. Like all the
Yeah.
festivals I want to see are in England. It's like, oh, that's a great one. It's in England.
uh,
Like all the
Like Wacken,
yeah, or
like
like
that's a big
yeah,
festival.
yeah, those are great. Yeah, I watched that on YouTube when it comes, a new one comes out. Like
Yeah.
but a lot of those bands that come through that play that I try to see. Like I've seen Saxon a few times, and you know, uh, like Priest, and did see Motorhead and stuff. I like seeing some of the harder stuff. We saw Deep Purple this year, and they were
oh,
still good. But I like some new bands too. I like some Southern rock, like Blackberry Smoke is great. They're
Oh yeah.
like a young Leonard Skinner. They're just really, really good.
Yeah. They've been to Chattanooga multiple times and
Yeah.
opened for a lot of the bands that show up here. They're really, really awesome.
Yeah, yeah, they've been
um,
better than some of the main bands I've seen. I'll see them
oh yeah,
open, like I like that better.
Yeah.
yeah. Have you ever heard of a band called Volbeat?
Oh yeah, they've been around a while, haven't they?
They
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
They've been around a while, but I meet so many people who have never heard them.
Mhm.
And I love their style. They're Danish rock, but they like take influence from like classic like Elvis, Johnny Cash,
Oh yeah,
and
that's cool.
stuff. And then they do this kind of like Danish rockabilly.
Mhm.
I love it.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
funny how a lot of those musical styles have survived better across the ocean than they have over here.
Hmm.
Like I'll find on YouTube some stuff that's sounds like stuff I used to listen to as a kid, but it's new.
Yeah.
And really good. Like I really like Wolf Mother. They sounded a lot like
Oh,
Zeppelin and Osborne got together or something. So I
yeah.
always look for new bands that sound like some of the ones I like.
You said Wolf Magoo. You brought back a memory.
Yeah.
What? Yep. Exactly. That sounds really, really good. Yeah.
Um, so here's a fun question for you. Uh, if you could put together your own concert,
Hmm.
4 bands, who are those 4 bands?
Do they all have to be living?
No.
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 Okay, that makes it easier.
Zombie bands are the best bands.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, there's still good ones, but I'd probably say, let's see, um, maybe the Sergeant Pepper era Beatles with Jimi Hendrix.
Oh.
Let's see who else. Maybe the Doors. They would be a little different on there. Talk classic rock stuff.
Mhm.
Janis Joplin put on a good show as far as female singers. She was probably the most off the hook that I can think of. That was really, really good. Uh, like more modern times, but with the youngish lineup, I'd probably put like for metal, I'd do Celtic Frost. They were fantastic.
Oh, yes.
Um, pair him with Black Sabbath. Oh, Earth Ride, those guys are great. Kind of like Motorhead, but slower, you know.
Yep.
Put Saint Vitus in there with them, they'd be great.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, for a really heavy show, that'd be fun, that kind of stuff, you know.
Oh yeah.
We used to get some of that in Austin. When I was in Austin, they had South by Southwest. They'd have I got to see some of those bands there in the heavy venue that they'd have set up, you know.
Yeah.
I like to feel the music as well as play it sometimes, because some of those bands you just compresses you, you know. It sounds so good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Probably one of the coolest bands I think I've ever seen live is Godsmack.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've never got to see.
Well, they do the dueling drums with Sully and the drummer, and you literally find yourself zoning into what they're doing, and it's amazing to watch. It is
Yeah.
amazing to watch.
Yeah,
Nice.
you can find if you go to YouTube and just type in Godsmack dueling drums,
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, it's absolutely amazing live because it starts out like the show that we went to, it starts out and like they cut all the lights off and there's
Mhm.
just a spotlight on the drummer and he's going and then all of a sudden you hear a whole other like percussion set and you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
where is that coming from? And then another spotlight comes on. It's the lead singer Sully.
Uh-huh.
Uh and they just do this like drum battle back and forth. And
That's
it's
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
they
mean,
start every show, the curtain is up and they're showing a video from a projector onto the screen.
uh-huh.
And it's like backstage footage and tour footage and stuff like that. And the song that's playing is For Those About to Rock by AC/DC.
Oh
And then
yeah.
as soon as it goes, fire! And then boom, as soon as it hits that final crescendo, they go
Yeah.
straight into the enemy. Godsmack song The Enemy. And I was like, yo, like again,
Well
zoom like
done.
one of the probably one of the best bands I've ever seen live. Them, Shine
Mhm.
Down. People may not like them now or even back then, but I think Avenged Sevenfold has an amazing live show. You know,
Yeah.
even if you don't care too much for the actual music, the live show is well worth the money you're going to spend.
Huh. Cool. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
when Dio was singing for Black Sabbath and called it Heaven and Hell, they put on a heck of a
Yep.
show. You
Yeah.
know.
Rest in peace, Ronnie James Dio.
Oh man, he was great. I mean, I like both of them singing for Sabbath, but Dio, Mob
Yeah.
Rules era was fantastic. You know.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, him and Rainbow was really good too.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Some good stuff, man.
Yeah, man.
It's funny. I got to see him in a relatively small club in Austin, Dio, and it was standing room only, and the stage was below where you could see it, you know, because
Yeah.
people were standing up. He comes walking out on stage, and all you could see was his hair. It was shorter than the people standing. Then he got up in a certain area, you could see him. Like, man, the guy is a lot shorter than I thought he was, you know.
His hair's taller than he is.
Yeah, but his voice made up for it, man.
Yes,
Gosh,
it did.
Yeah.
If I try to
Um
get that high as far as vocal range go, I'd probably just shred my damn voice box. Probably.
yeah, I stay down in the ZZ Top range, and yeah, I can do some AC/DC, but more Bon Scott than Brian Johnson, you know.
Yeah.
right, right.
Fake that
Um
until chill bad.
Yeah.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Makes you chill.
Um, so if you could remix your voice with any musical sound, what would that sound be? And what tune would you use to create it?
Remix my voice
Yes.
into a sound.
hmm Or
Uh,
I'm sorry, a musical instrument. Remix your voice into a musical
oh,
instrument.
okay. Okay, yeah. Um, let's see. Probably funny enough, probably like a really, really massive bass sound
Mm.
that would just, you know, blow you off the stage.
Ernie Ball
Yeah,
Stingray.
yeah, get so deep that it just rattle your kneecaps, you know.
Oh yeah.
That's
Oh
what people
yeah.
say, what superhero would you want to be, you know, like comic book sort of thing. And the first guy I always go to is Galactus, even though he's not a hero, because he's just so massive. He's got the coolest hat, right? And he eats planets and just does what he wants. You know, no one can even do anything about it. So
Right.
it'd be that.
You talked about playing the guitar and stuff. Do you have a particular brand of guitar that you like, or are you not really fond of the
Yeah, I
brand?
mean, my favorite is this one here. It's my 1971 Gibson SG.
Oh,
It's got
that's pretty.
it's pretty good, you know. But I got it in a pawn shop in 1993 for $200.
Oh wow.
They didn't know what they had. I ran home as fast as I could to get the money. But, he's like, wait a minute, you know. But there's that one, and then for bass, um, I put some new pickups on it, so it sounded better. But I love the way it played and the way it felt. It doesn't weigh a ton. But I've got this applause.
Oh wow.
Applause bass. I put some better pickups on it. It's got the kind of the cool end on it and the shark's teeth.
Yeah.
And I had to put the right strap on it.
Right.
But it sounds really good, and it doesn't weigh a ton, which is basses can weigh
Yeah.
ridiculous
So
amount.
so when it comes to bass, are you a picker? Are you a slapper? Or are you just a
I'll either use my thumb or a pick sometimes. I don't really do too much Seinfeld music, you know.
okay? Because some people are weird. You see the set. Because when I think of like bass players and like some of the greatest bass players of all time, like the first person that pops in my head is Les Claypool from Promise.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like, I think he's the greatest bass player of all. Him, Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, Lemmy from Motorhead, obviously. Um, God, there's so many really good ones. Yeah, but the first person I think of is Les Claypool. He's probably
Yeah.
the best bass player I've ever heard in my life.
He's great. My two favorites, like going back, and still are John Entwistle of the Who, because
Yep.
he looked totally bored, but he's tearing it up, you know.
Yes.
And then Geezer Butler of Black Sabbath, if you listen to the bass in those songs, and he also makes it look like he's just waiting for the next, stick of gum, but he's like every time I watch those guys, I'm like, I can't really play, but they're great. Yeah. I like I like a bass to sound like a bass, because some bands like even like Van Halen, early Van Halen, you could barely hear the bass because it's probably mixed. But I like to hear everything. It's like they're not always my favorite songs, but if you go back to Grand Funk or something, the bass is really heavy in
Yeah.
the music. So it sounds great coming out of a good stereo,
Who are some of your favorite guitar players of all time?
I mean, my first was probably Jimi Hendrix, because I
Yeah.
heard his stuff when I was a kid, But for style, I really, really like the Crazy Horse Neil Young stuff, because that's just like the most wicked distortion that Godfather of grunge, basically.
Yeah.
And then love Angus Young's sound, and Tony Omni. They've got great guitar sounds. For someone who's kind of a wizard, Joe Satriani's really good, but he's too technical for me. I mean, I like more soul in it, but he's like super technical, really good at that,
Yeah.
Probably the old SG guys, and Hendrix on the Fender,
Yeah, I was thinking like anytime I think of like guitar players, I think of like Marty Friedman. I think of for me on a personal level, I think Dimebag Darrell's one of the greatest guitar players I've ever heard in my life, just because of the way he played the guitar, the tone. And Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine is also an incredible guitar player as well, I think.
Yeah, he played with Audio Slave for a while. I saw him
Yeah.
when he was with Audio Slave.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good show. A lot of good shows in Austin.
Oh yeah.
We need to get to Austin at one point.
Yeah, you know what
Yes.
though? These days I like the music in Dallas better. There's more of a rock, scene here than there is in Austin. Austin's more singer-songwriter stuff. You have like one reggae club, some punk rock clubs, and then singer-songwriter stuff, and a little bit of blues here and there. But down here it's just more rock, and metal and stuff. So
Yeah.
I like that,
That's awesome. Well, Charles, we don't want to keep you too long tonight. So for those that might want to follow you to see that next project that you have coming out, the next convention that you're going to be at, where would they go?
Well, my next one is going to be Anime Dallas the weekend after Thanksgiving. Then I'll be up at let's see, there's a few more this year. Hang on just a minute. Let me consult my list. I've got let's see. Here we are. Go into November. Yeah, I've got the Saratoga Comic-Con, which looks like it'll be a lot of fun. Anime Dallas, and there's one other one. Let me keep scrolling. Oh no, that's not till next year. Those are the two main ones coming up this year, I think, unless they call me for something else.
They could always call you for something else.
Yeah.
So we were once told that the greatest gift that you can give another human is your time, because it's the one thing you can never get back. We greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us this evening.
Well, thank you guys. It's been a total blessing and fun. And, anytime you want to talk some more, if you see me at a convention or whatever, come up and say hi.
Oh, most definitely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you want to hang out with us for just 1 second while we do this quick little outro, we want to thank you guys for watching tonight. Charles, once again, thank you for joining us, man. We really do appreciate you doing this for us. Chip, Roger, anything you guys want to say before we bounce out here this evening?
As always, please do not leave without leaving a like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Your turn, Roger.
And as always, thank you guys for the great support. Thank you guys for watching. Everything that you guys do to help us out, like, share, subscribe, thumbs up, 5-star reviews, all that really helps out and helps the algorithm out, gets our content out there so we are able to do more interviews that you guys are enjoying, and just looking forward to doing more.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to continue to support Movement Radio, check out streamlabs.com/Movement Radio /merch and go copy some merch. Also, Redbubble is also another merchandise provider for us. We will give you more information as the weeks go by. Charles, once again, man, thank you for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. I'm Talon Williams.
I'm Chip Hazard.
And I'm Roger Sierra.
And this is Movement Radio.
God bless.